For your hosting and domain needs, head over to HostGator where you could get plans starting as low as $3.95 a month. For more information, check out the affiliate link in the description area below. Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com on my continuing series on making the move from Windows or Mac over to Linux. Today, I'm going to be talking about file permissions in Linux. Now, if you've not seen my original video where I show you how to install VirtualBox and then install Linux Mint within VirtualBox, be sure to check that out in the description area below. Now, one of the most hotly debated topics within the whole Windows versus Linux world is security. And one of the main reasons of that is how Windows and Linux differ in the way they work underneath. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of details of how they work underneath, but just know that Linux is a permissions-based operating system which they inherited from Unix, and you'll see what I mean by that. Now, as a Windows user, whenever you log into your Windows machine the first time, you are going to be creating an account. And more often than not, you will have administrator account. Okay, so let me show you. So whenever you create your user account, you will automatically be given an administrator account. So what that means is you could pretty much do absolutely anything on your operating system. Okay, now in some cases that's a good thing, but for the majority of cases that's where the whole security thing comes in. Because if you do have administrator privileges, although the good things is you're not limited by what you could do, the bad things is your account has so many permissions that if somebody wanted to do bad things to your operating system, i.e. malware, viruses, and so forth, they have full permissions to do so once they get access to this account. Now, what you can do, you can also create a different account that is not an administrator account. So if you were to add a user, and I do want to note something, Microsoft definitely wants to get your email address, or they want you to set up an account. And so what you want to do is create a local account. So say I don't have this person's sign-in information, okay, and it's still going to want you to create an email address. Just say add a user without a Microsoft account. So I just want to let people know if they're not used to doing that, that's a kind of tricky thing. And so let's go ahead and create a new user. And this account will be a local account, meaning no email address. Okay, so let's go ahead and put a password. Yes, super secure right here. That's my hint. Okay, and now you've created a second account. Now within Windows, whenever you have this account, you can set the different permissions. Okay, you could either set them as a standard user or administrator. So most of the times what you want to do is only have one administrator account and then create a second standard user account for you to do your daily computing. Okay, so maybe this will be other people who use your computer, or even for yourself, so that way you're not using the administrator account for everything. Okay, now the standard account, it definitely has permissions, but obviously it doesn't have as many permissions as administrator, and so in that case it'll help to limit the amount of damage the standard user can do. Okay, and there's also other things that you could do as well. You could set up assign access, meaning you could add different permissions in terms of what this user can access for applications. Okay, so that in general is how the user account security is done within Windows. It's very simple, but at the same time, if you think about it from a security point of view, it's not the safest way to do things. Okay, now let's go ahead and move over to Linux. Okay, so over in the Linux world, there are also some similarities and obviously differences to how it's done in Windows. So first, let's go ahead and add a new user. So what you do is go to Menu, Administration, Users and Groups. Type in your password. And then if you notice, I already have some users here. All you have to do is click on Add. And unlike what you have in Windows, it doesn't ask for you to create an email account. Okay, so similar to Windows, you can choose either standard or administrator account. I recommend you use standard account unless you had a real good reason to add another administrator account. So here we're going to go ahead and add a new user. Okay, very simple, and everything looks the same except for this thing called groups. And this is where you're going to get into the world of Linux permissions at a group level, and then also underneath it as well. And so what each of these groups are is that each group has different permissions underneath. And so that's how Linux controls your access and what you're able to do. So that's where the security part comes in. And so let's see how that works underneath, okay, and how that would apply to what we're talking about here. So let's go ahead and go to our documents folder. And you see here I have a folder and a file. Now if I open up my terminal and I go to that same directory, things are going to look a little different. You type in the command ls-l and that'll do a list. And you've noticed, whoa, what does all that stuff mean? Okay, that's kind of confusing, right? Now all of this permissions based type structure, this is inherited from Unix. This is how it is in Unix. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you in general terms what all this means, and I'm also going to show you how to change things as well. So this right here, this very first character right here, these are called special permission flags. Okay, and so you could have 3 special permission flags that actually show up, and then there's 2 other ones that don't show up here but they show up elsewhere. Okay, and then moving on, you'll see there's this RWX. These are actually the permissions. Okay, so read, R, W stands for write or edit, X stands for execute. And you'll notice there's another RX, but these are different groups. There are 3 groups right here. Okay, so this is at the owner level, this is group level, and this is other. Okay, and so for each one of these groups you could have read, write, or execute. And then if you move on here, this is the name of the owner. In this case, this is the account that I'm logged in now, and then this is the group that actually it's part of. And in this case, it's just myself. So whenever you create a user, okay, you will get a group created for yourself as well. Okay, so just remember owner, group, and obviously this is the timestamp, and that's the directory or file name. So here, the actual special permission flags, like I said, you could have 3 that show up. So D stands for directory. If you have a minus symbol, that means it's a file. And then if you have a L symbol, that's a symbolic link. And the 2 other ones that I mentioned that don't show up here is S and T. But for the majority of directories or files, you're going to have either D or a minus symbol. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on this file, and I'm going to show you how you could change permissions, read, write, execute. And then later I will show you how to change owners and groups. So the command that you're going to use to actually change permissions is chmod, which is change mode. Okay, so I have a little file here where I show you what those are. Okay, now first let's go back and go to our actual groups right here. Okay, just remember there's 3 groups here that show up. One is the actual owner, which is you. Okay, the other one is G, which is group. Then this final right here is O, which is other. And then we have another one called A, which stands for all these particular groups. Okay, and this will be important for you to know whenever you are changing actual permissions. And as I stated earlier, you have read, write, and execute permissions. Okay, so like I said, the command you use is chmod, and all of this other stuff will make sense once I go through this. And here's the actual structure for it. Chmod, the group that you actually want to modify, okay, either one of these, the permissions. So here the plus stands for you add permissions, you put a minus sign in to take away permissions, and then the permissions are any one of these 3, and then the actual file name or directory name. Okay, so let's go ahead and add write or edit permissions for people in the other group. So that's everybody else. Okay, and so in terms of security, this one normally has yourself, obviously normally has the highest permissions, and then the second group is the group level. So if you want to give this particular group certain permissions, you could do that. And then the final one is O, which is others. And so normally you don't want to give a lot of permissions to other. That means anybody could do anything to this file if you give them more permissions. Okay, so let's go ahead and give write permissions to this actual group right here, which is the other group. So you put the group O, then I'm adding permissions, W, okay, and then the file name. Now you'll notice something that happens right off the bat when you type this in. Normally, whenever you type that in, you won't see anything, right, happen after this. But if you type in ls minus L again, wow, look, you have write permissions now. So that's how I was simply able to change that. Now, what if I want to subtract that permission or remove that permission? I would put the same command, except now instead of a W, I'd put an X, or actually a negative. Okay, press enter. Then let's do that ls command again. And now the permission's gone. And so that makes a lot of sense. Now, what if you wanted to add executable permissions for every single group, and you didn't want to have to do it individually? Like you didn't want to have to do chmod, you know, and then put u plus the permission, and you know, chmod g plus. Okay, so what you do is use the all group. So chmod a plus x, and then type in the file name. Okay, press enter, do the ls again, and now every single group has executable permissions, and even the file will change color. So that's really cool. You're able to change permissions for all the groups all at one time. So that makes things more convenient. So I'm going to remove that permission. That's all well, but you know, maybe you want to add different types of permissions to each group all at the same time. And even though this is cool, it's really tedious if you wanted to add specific type of permissions for each group instead of them having all the same permissions with one command. Okay, so that's where you get into the whole numeric parts of the permissions. Okay, so 0, as you can see here, is no permissions. 1, execute permissions. 2, write. 4, read. And as you see here, there's 5, 6, and 7, and what they are is you just add these permissions, and that's how you get that number. So as you can see here, if you put a 5, it would be read and execute. So it corresponds to these permissions up here. So that makes a lot of sense, with 7 giving them access to all permissions. So how would that work? So you come here, chmod. So say, for example, I wanted to give the owner group all permissions, which is 7. And then the second one, the group, the G group, I wanted to give them read and execute. And then finally, I wanted to give the other permission just read and write permissions. Okay, so it would be chmod 7, 5, 6, and then you put in the file name. And then if you do ls again, check it out. Now you have the different permissions that you set to the different groups all with one command. You see? So as I stated earlier, owner group level, you want it to have all permissions. The second group, you want it to have just read and execute, which is 5. Then finally, the other group, you just want it to have read and write, which is 6. Awesome. And as you can see here, this is really powerful, and this is where you could have a lot of control and security for all your various directory and files. And since you could change permissions all with one command line for different groups, it's become extremely powerful for people who need to change security or control security all with a single command line. Okay, and you could see that this type of stuff can get complex. You could create scripts and stuff to change security levels, you know, across many different files and folders. And so that is chmod. That is how you change permissions for different groups. So next up, how can you change owner and groups for each file or directory? Well, you would use a command called chown, which stands for change owner. And this is the syntax for changing the owner. So chown owner file name, and the syntax for changing it at the group level. Okay, changing the group, chown dot, and then the group name, then file name. Okay, now if you try to do this right now, let's just say I wanted to change the owner for geek.txt. and I wanted to change it to the new user I just created. Okay, now if you try this right away, you will get this error message which says you can't change this because operation not permitted. That's because you need to have some root permissions in order to change owners. And so before you put in the command, you put in sudo first, so then you could run these root level permissions, and then you would put in your command. Okay, just as what we wanted a little bit earlier. Then you're going to put in your password, and then if you do ls again, check it out, now the owner's Arch. Okay, now similarly, what if you wanted to change the group? Well, sudo once again, chown. Now in this case, I want to add them to the video group. Okay, make this video group right there. Okay, so let's go back to my command line, put dot, and then the name of the group, and then the file. Then if you do this, check it out. I changed both the owner and the group. So what if you wanted to change the owner at the group all with one command? Well, you can use this one right here, this syntax. So let's just say I want to change the owner to Debian, and then the group, let's just say the group CD-ROM. There is a CD-ROM group. Then the file name. Okay. Oh wait, I forgot to put chown. Okay, chown Debian CD-ROM, and then the file name. Okay, and then you're doing ls again. Check it out. I did that with just one command. Now you could also do this by using a slightly different command. So let's go back to that again. Okay, so instead of a colon, I use a dot. Okay, and so let's change this back to video. Okay, and I also want to change this owner back to Arch. Okay, press enter, do the ls command again. Bam. See? So that is how you can change the actual owners of the file and the group that they have. And so as you can see here, this could get really complex, but it's also really simple when you understand the concepts of it. When I first saw this, it's in Unix, I was completely confused, especially if you are brand new to Linux. This will really confuse you. So whenever I got to Linux, I already understood how this worked at this point. But like I said, it is extremely powerful because it allows a extra level of security at a very granular level. But once again, once you understand this, which hopefully you did after this tutorial, this would make a lot more sense. So now when you look at this, you understand what permissions are, what groups are, and also what owners and other groups are within that particular file and directory. So that's it for this particular episode. If you had any other thoughts on permissions or security within Linux, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, leave a like and subscribe. And if you wanted to support my channel further, you could do that at patreon.com/Geek Outdoors. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.